Morning, everyone. This is your first ever visit to our church. Welcome. My name is Darren. I teach Bible here at Life Point. I think Life Point's a pretty good church. We've got comfortable seats, as you can see. It's dark, so you don't have to bother with makeup. The people who come here are pretty much just like you are, maybe slightly worse. And we like to say of ourselves that we're a church where no perfect people are allowed. So if you don't have somewhere to go on a Sunday morning, you'd be more than welcome to hang your hat here. We take pretty much anyone. And you know, it's an old-fashioned thing to say nowadays, but I think it's good to come to church. It's good for your soul. It just is. Now I thought that this morning I'd talk a little bit about Christmas. Thought that'd be a good thing to do. I don't really like Christmas, to be honest. Mainly at Christmas I just find myself getting annoyed. For example, I get annoyed that we're not allowed to call Christmas Christmas. We have to call it the holidays. And just because I don't like Christmas doesn't mean I don't want to call it Christmas. So that annoys me. People, they annoy me as well. I was Christmas shopping the other day in a gas station. And I held the door open for a woman. I know that's a brave thing to do in a post-Weinstein world, but I did. And she walked straight past me without even acknowledging my presence. I took 5 seconds out of my day to be your personal butler. You didn't even give me an encouraging wink. So that bugs me. My shower, that annoys me as well. Hate my shower. The temperature control on it has a 180-degree range of motion, 178 of which do absolutely nothing. It's all about that 2 degrees in the middle. And I don't think in 2017, when I have a shower, I should have to adopt the poise of a safecracker. Mainly, I just get annoyed at how perfect everything is. It bugs me. So, for example, there's this line in the Christmas story written by Luke. It says, an angel came to Mary, that's nice, and said to her, "Greetings, you who are highly favored." Now, when we read in the Bible that God favored Mary, we assume that he did so because she was nice and not naughty, right? That's the Christmas guilt right there. Mary was a girl of exemplary morality. Among her peers, she was meticulous in the practice of her religion, and because those things were true of her, that's why God liked her and did good stuff for her, because God likes good people, not you. That's the assumption. And I think it is essential in life to question assumptions. Like, for example, if swimming is so good for your figure, how come whales are fat? Think about that. Right? Why do those people pay $38 to go up the CN Tower, and when they get there, they put money in binoculars to look at stuff on the ground? And why in 2017? Why do we still insist on calling Mary good? What is it about good that is so important to us? What does good have to do with anything? And yet this is ingrained in what the church tells us. So here's Leonardo da Vinci's rendering of the Annunciation. And you'll notice that Mary is reading her Bible like good girls do. She's not smoking, she's not vaping, she's not doing any of those things. She's reading her Bible. Implication, this is why God liked her. This is why God favored her. Next slide, same event depicted by the Spanish artist El Greco. I have a daughter who's an art major, so I know a lot about this stuff. Exactly the same imagery. Reading her Bible like good girls do. She's not sitting naked on a wrecking ball. The implication being this is why God favors her. Because God likes the good people, not the bad people. Next slide, fresco from the 14th century. Notice, what does Mary have around her head now? A halo. That's nice. Of course God liked her. Of course God wanted to do stuff for her. Next slide, this time from Byzantium. Same idea. Halo, same implication. Mary's a good person. Mary does good things. And that's why God is on her side. Even in contemporary Christian art, this notion is sickeningly preserved. So here's Mary in modern-ish clothes. Modern if you're an Amish girl, I suppose. But, you know, she's wearing Vans-type shoes. You know, $60 and they last 3 months. But look at what else she's doing. She's reading her Bible. Of course she's reading her Bible. That's what good people do. And because she does that, God's on her side. God likes her. She has an awesome Christmas. That is the assumption. And that assumption forms the basis of our religious moralities. We all come from traditions which tell us one way or another that unless we adhere to their moral codes and follow their sacred rules and observe their sacred rituals, God will not look kindly upon us. And you only have to question this assumption for a second or two, and you realize it makes no sense at all. Think about it. If successfully adhering to the moral codes of our religion was of any value, if that was so important, then what was Jesus all about? What was Jesus even for? What was Christmas? What was Good Friday? What was Easter Sunday? If being good and moral and decent and doing the right thing so successfully was of such importance, then why Jesus? In fact, what about anything of Christianity makes the slightest bit of sense if all of that is even remotely true? The word favoured in the Bible does not mean, because you've been good, I'm going to give you something. It actually means the opposite of that. It means I'm going to give you something because I like giving you something. It is my nature to be a gift giver. And I suppose the word favoured then is the quintessential Christmas word. Later tonight, those of you who are parents will place presents under trees. And as you do so, the thought of whether your children have been bad or good will be irrelevant to you. The only factor of relevance to you is that your children are your children, and loving them and being kind to them the best way you can comes as naturally to you as breathing. And if you were to make a connection between how your child behaved and how you treated them at Christmas, we might call you a toxic parent. And yet that is the poison of religion, and it makes such little sense. Think about it. Would it be so out of the question for God to like you because he just likes you? Would it be so out of the question for God to want good things for you because that's what he's like? And what you're like doesn't really have anything to do with it. It doesn't change the way he is. Would that be so wrong? So difficult? Notice, please, the tense also of this word favoured in this sentence. Under normal circumstances in the Bible, we would ask for God to give us his favour. So a few weeks ago in church, I explained that the word favour in the Bible is basically a way of asking God to grease the wheels of life. It is to acknowledge that so much of health and happiness, so much of business and relationships, so much of the big things of life are a matter of luck. And luck can work for you and against you. It can make you roll and it can screw you over. Just life is just like this. And this word favour in the Bible is a way of saying, God, the gears on my life are really starting to grind at the moment, and things aren't working for me as well as they used to. They're not flowing for me as well as I would like them to. I'm not getting any traction with anything that's important in my life. So God, I'm praying to you, will you please just grease the wheels of my life and get things moving for me again? Get things working for me again in my health, in my happiness, in my relationships, in my head. I just need some help. I need some grease and traction in this life. This is the basic meaning of the word favour in the Bible. And so what we normally find in the Bible is that this word appears on the lips of people like you and me, who get on our knees and say, God, will you favour me? Will you help me? Will you make things work for me again? But there's none of that. Here the word comes from heaven to earth. Here there's an announcement, Mary, you are favoured. Mary, God is on your side. God is working in you, and things are going to start moving for you now. Mary, today is a good day. Now in this life, you can't always tell that a good day is a good day at the time of it being a good day. The same is true of bad days. Let's read on. Mary was greatly troubled at his words and wondered what kind of greeting this might be. And again, Christianity almost always gets this wrong. So let's go back to our Da Vinci. Notice Mary's face. Notice how serene it is, how composed it is. So what we're being led to believe here is that Mary is reacting to all of this with spiritual tranquility. But the text of the Bible actually says that Mary was troubled. And the word troubled that Luke uses here, Luke was a doctor as far as we know, so he tends to use medical imagery more than his Bible writing colleagues. The word troubled that he uses here basically means mentally agitated, profoundly distressed. The kind of emotion that has you reaching for a paper bag and doing that breathing thing, you know? Not the other thing you do with a brown paper bag. And I looked through Christian art to find something that conveys this sense of what Luke is trying to say, and I couldn't find anything, so I found this instead. So this is a picture of a 14-year-old girl, and she appears to be feeling what we hear more and more about these days, especially with young people. She appears to be anxious. She appears to not see the world through the eyes of a happy teenage girl as we would wish her to. She appears to see it through eyes that are worried and stressed and deeply unhappy with life. And whenever we hear stories of unhappy children, our heart breaks. And yet this is the look on Mary's face. This is what the gospel writer is trying to convey. A look that betrays a realization that life as she knew it and as she hoped it to be is now over, and she has no clue how she's going to manage the next few months, the next few years. It's over. And naturally then she's worried. But the angel said to her, "Do not be afraid, Mary. You have found favour with God." And again, the word favour here means, Mary, today's a good day. God is with you. God is on your side. And in these difficult events, everything's going to be okay. And for me, that's what Christmas is all about. I don't really hate Christmas. I like the food, I like the family, I like the friends. I like hanging out with my kids and playing Dungeons and Dragons and taking them snowboarding and all that stuff. I like it. But as far as the religion of it is concerned, Christmas to me is a reminder that in the dark times of life, times when I'm inclined to be anxious and scared, it's in those times that God is with me. There's a reason why the church decided to have Christmas in December. Christmas, as you probably know, was invented in Europe, where the history comes from. And what the church basically did was it took over these midwinter festivals, Saturnalia in Italy and Yule in Northern Europe, and they had these festivals at the darkest point of winter. And the church basically took this over. And I like that they did that at that time of the year. In the dark, when the sun is furthest away, we needed a reminder that the light still shines. So look at the phrases in the Christmas story that we tend to gloss over deliberately. Words that come from the heart of the Nativity. Troubled. Afraid. Troubled. Afraid. Thank you, Mr. Luke. You just described what Christmas is actually like for so many of us, so much of the time. Troubled, scared. And in that reality, we remind ourselves that Jesus said, I have come as a light to shine in this dark world, so that all who trust in me will no longer wander in darkness. You know, to properly celebrate Christmas, you have to remind yourself that life is often lived in the dark. There are days when you don't feel like getting out of bed. There are days when you're afraid to face the world, when you don't feel that anything you're doing is working or of any value, and you just want to give up. And the Bible is refreshingly honest about this. For example, have a look at this. It comes from the Old Testament, and it just nails it. I hoped for happiness and light, and darkness came instead. That's not cheery, but it's true. The fact is, life is often disappointing. Things don't always work out as we planned. On the trivial end of the scale, we'll perhaps be disappointed by some of the gifts we open tomorrow morning. We'll be polite, of course, and say thank you for the sweater, but I was hoping for an iPad. And on the other end of the scale, for some of us, 2017 has brought its fair share of disappointment. For some of us, it's been a health thing. For some of us, it's been a relationship thing. Perhaps finances and job security have taken a turn for the worst. For some of us, this has been a year where we did things we swore we'd never do, and we experienced pains we thought never to experience. And even if you don't get the whole Bible, Jesus, Christianity thing, this is a bit of the Bible you can relate to. This is a bit you can say amen to, even if you never say amen. I hoped for happiness and light, but I got trouble, and I got darkness instead. That's life. Here's another cheery line from the Bible. Lover, friend, acquaintance, all are gone. There is only darkness everywhere. That's just depressing. That when you go through a divorce, or when someone you love rejects you, or when you just lose people, you're there. And life is considerably less cheery than you hoped. I was talking to an old fella at the gym the other morning. At the gym I go to, there's a walking track mainly used by seniors. And there's this old guy, I see him quite often. Sometimes I'll walk around the track with him just because. And this guy's like early 90s, still got it. And his health, I mean, not his looks. You know, he was, we got talking a bit deeper than we normally do, and he said, I'm lucky to have my health, and I'm lucky to have it all together, but the sad thing for me this time of year is everyone I know is gone. Some of them like 20 years ago. All of my friends are gone. And then, slightly more trivially, I said, have you got anyone? He says, oh yeah, I've got girlfriends. And this is brilliant, remember this. He said one of the advantages, he was a software engineer, and he says it's brilliant, because like a lot of the guys my age, they're either dead or they don't know how to work computers. So this guy does well on online dating. He says, I didn't mean to tell you that, and I hope he doesn't see this on video. Anyway, but it's so true for people of that generation. And they get this line in the Bible. Everyone is gone. Everyone's gone. It's just me. And when life hits you the way this sentence describes, you're there in Dickens' Ghost of Christmas Past. Because here you are today in Christmas 2017. But your mind is trapped in Christmases long ago, when things were better. And Christmas has a way, doesn't it, of magnifying all of the things that either are wrong in your life or that you think are wrong in your life. And it's so brilliant, I think, that the depressing and disappointing themes of life are intimately associated with the biblical Christmas story. To understand what the Bible means when it says that to those living in the land of the shadow of death, a light has dawned, you have to first of all know something of what it means to live in the darkness. And then we get to the news itself. Verse 31, the angel says, "You will be with child, and you will give birth to a son, and you are to give him the name Jesus." Then some additional detail. "He will be great, and will be called the Son of the Most High. The Lord God will give him the throne of his father David, and he will reign over the house of Jacob forever. His kingdom will never end." That's pretty good. You know, maybe you hope your kid will be a lawyer or something, but that's good too. And then, but then Mary goes straight to, the whole "I've been to middle school" thing, and "I've done biology," and then so she says what she says next. "How can this be since I am a virgin?" Now what she actually says in Hebrew is, "How can this be since I am a na'ar?" And the word na'ar does not mean virgin. It means something more specific than that. It means I am a young person who has no knowledge whatsoever of men. Now, I wouldn't have thought that was too much of a problem, because men aren't all that easy, all that difficult to figure out. So the point she's making then is, because I have no knowledge whatsoever of men, what you're therefore saying, Mr. Angel, is impossible. This is the point, Mr. Angel. This is impossible. You're asking me to believe a Christmas thing that is impossible. Next sentence. "The angel answered, 'The Holy Spirit will come upon you, the shadow of the Most High will overpower you, so the Holy One to be born to you will be called the Son of God.'" That's theology speak for what is about to happen to you is impossible, but you're not responsible. God is with you in a way that has nothing to do with how good you are. Your circumstances are irrelevant, your morality is irrelevant, and your lack of knowledge of men only serves to prove that what is about to happen in your life is a God thing and not a you thing. Case in point. Next sentence. "Even Elizabeth, your cousin, is going to have a child in her own old age. And she who was said to be barren is in her 6th month. For nothing is impossible with God." The word impossible in our dictionary means something like incapable of being done, incapable of occurring or happening, absurd, or inconceivable. And I'm drawn to this word particularly because I know very well that many of us face impossible situations this Christmas. There are areas of our lives where we have hit a brick wall and it feels that there is no way around it. We face impossibilities. There are painful things going on in our families that we would love to fix, but we can't. It's impossible. We struggle with addictions that we would love to be free of, but we can't. It's impossible. And we struggle on. We're worried about our jobs. At the end of the money, there's always some more month, and it's also impossible. There's things going on in the lives of our children that break our hearts, and we would wish for a magic wand, but there are no such wishes, and everything remains so intractably impossible. And in this sentence, Luke applies a general concept to a specific situation talking about Mary, but the general concept still remains. It speaks through the ages and says something important particularly at the darkest time of the year and at the darkest places in life. Nothing is impossible with God. Words that cannot be applied to what God can do are impossible and inconceivable and powerless and implausible. You know, it's quite fashionable, I suppose, now, has been for 10 years or so, to ask the question, maybe there isn't a God. Fair enough. That is a perfectly rational and logical question to ask. Maybe there isn't a God. But it is also perfectly logical and equally rational to ask the opposite question. Maybe there is a God. That works. Maybe there is. Maybe it's all true. And if you accept that premise, as you do, then maybe that God knows what you're going through. And maybe He's able to help. And show you that what you currently think is so impossible isn't so impossible after all. Look at this. Comes from the book of Psalms in the Old Testament, and I love it. The Lord is near to those who are discouraged. He saves those who have lost all hope. So what do we learn in that sentence? According to the Bible, God is especially close not to the religiously meticulous or the morally good, but to the discouraged, to the worried, to the people who have had all hope kicked out of them by life, whose circumstances seem so unchangeable, so irredeemable. Here is the hope of Christmas. Here is the drumbeat of the original biblical story. Do not be anxious. Do not be troubled. Do not be afraid. God is with you. He is with you in the dark. Yes, I know about the things that's happened, the things you've done, the fears you carry, the regrets and the failings that haunt you. I know about the darkness that rages in your tired soul, and none of it phases God. He sent His Son for people like you and me, and He is with you. So stay strong. Have hope and believe again in the light that shines in the dark. And remember that God is near to the discouraged. So encourage yourself and have a Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming. God bless you. If you've got nothing to do tonight and you just want to get out of the house, see you at the Hampton Inn at 7:30. God bless you.